Good morning. My name is Nancy McDowell. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I'm here to welcome you all today, those of you here in the sanctuary and those of you online. I especially want to welcome visitors, friends, and family members. Let us know how we can gather you in spirit and community as you share your presence with us today. We have refreshments across the hall. I hope you'll join us after the service. We gather intentionally for comfort, for community, for spiritual inspiration, for love, for wonderful music, for joys, concerns, some wisdom, and maybe even some laughter. Welcome to this time of sharing. This is what we are as a community, what we're all about. Our worship team today includes our senior minister, Reverend John Morehouse, our congregational life coordinator, Yvette McDonald, to lead us in Time for All Ages, our worship associate, Debbie McKnight. Music today will be led by music director David Brown, joined by Jody Brown on the piano, soprano Caitlin Watterson, and of course, all of you, whether in the sanctuary or online. Now kindly silence your electronics and join me as we recite our mission statement. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
Most of our music this morning is from the klezmer genre, which is the music of the Ashkenazi Jews. This first tune is the best Hanukkah song you've never heard. It's called Drei Dreidel, Spin Dreidel, and it's in Yiddish, although there is a part with which we could use your help, and I promise you don't have to speak Yiddish to do it. It goes like this. Ay, 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 ay. Let's try it together. And. Ay, 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 ay. Beautiful. And then a second one that goes, ay, 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 ay. And. Ay, 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 ay. You will know when to sing it. 2, 3, 4.
Bring mir Bräut und bring mir Wein, wolle On the Brink of a New Year by Lois Van Leer. We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention. Would you please now rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn 222, Yamalel.
Everyone. And today we have a special story for Time of All Ages. And before I begin, I would like to invite all the children up to gather around so we can read the story together. Yeah, come on up. Come on. Hey, Anya. How are you? Yeah, hi. Come on. I saw two other little kids. Yeah, come on. You want me to walk with you? I'll come walk with you. She's like, no. All right. Oh, we have two more. What's your name? Kaylin? What's your name? Todd. Hey, what's your name? Yeah. Catherine. What's your name? Harrison. Hey, have a seat. So today we have a special story about blessings. And it's called Oscar and the 8 Blessings. So I'm gonna just sit here. Do y'all wanna sit down here so you can see the pictures? Yeah? Can you see? Oscar and the 8 Blessings. Yeah, Oscar. Can you see? Oscar and his father believed in the power of blessings. So did Oscar. There's Oscar with his mom and his dad. Until the night of broken glass. There was a lot of commotion going on where Oscar lived in Germany. His parents put him on a ship to America. He had nothing but an address and a photo of a woman he didn't even know. It was his Aunt Esther. And his father's last words to him were, Oscar, even in bad times, people can be good. You have to look for the blessings. See that? There's Oscar. He's traveling all the way from Europe, all the way to New York City on this big ship. Oscar arrived in New York on the 7th day of Hanukkah, and it was also Christmas Eve. He knew his Aunt Esther would be lighting the menorah at sunset. To reach her before sun went down, Oscar would have to walk over 100 blocks. That's so far, right? The city was terribly big. Oscar was terribly small. He was very small, just like you all, right? And Broadway reached before him like a river. So there it is. That is super big. Can you imagine how that is him? He's just walking all along this. Oscar was already so tired, and he was so hungry and cold. His father's last word to him felt very far away. After a few blocks, he looked up and saw a woman feeding pigeons. She offered him a piece of stale roll so he could feed them too. Oscar wanted to feed the birds, but he was too hungry not to swallow. But he was too hungry not to swallow the morsel himself. I should get my glasses. Is that funny? Yeah, I should probably get my glasses. So there he is feeding the pigeons. Okay. The woman reached inside her coat and gave him a small loaf of bread. It was warm and fresh. It gave him the strength to keep walking to his aunt's house because he has so far to go. Look at this picture. You want to see? Look at this picture. He's walking just like that, making those sounds. He saw a newsstand full of comics. One showed a strong man in a cape doing amazing things. He stopped bullets. He stopped trains. Who do you think that is? You are absolutely correct. The newsstand man held out his hand. Oscar didn't have any money, so he gave the comic book to him. The man called out, "Keep it, kid. It's Christmas." Wasn't that sweet? Wasn't that really nice of him? Yeah. You think that was a blessing? Yeah. Oscar clutched his gift, his Superman and his... I gotta get my glasses. I'm so sorry. I am doing my darnest, but you know what? It's not working. And this is what live recording looks like. Now I can see. There we go. All right. Ooh, I can see now. That's a blessing, isn't it? Okay, Oscar clutched his gift, his Superman, and heard his father's words. You have to look for the blessings. Look, he looked in a window and saw this. What does he see? Right? Isn't that beautiful? Yes, is that a princess? An angel, yes. Oscar kept walking. He stopped when he heard music coming from a little alley where a big man was humming a jazzy tune. The man whistled to Oscar, do-do-do-do-do-do. Oscar whistled back, do-do-do-do-do-do. They made a tune as fast as light as the snowflakes falling around them. It was Oscar's first conversation in America. At the corner of the park, boys were having a snowball fight. How fun. Yeah, sounds fun. I know. One boy slipped. Oscar leapt and caught him, just as Superman would have done. The boy was laughing, and that made Oscar laugh. But when he looked at Oscar's cold hands, he stopped laughing. He took off his mittens. Wasn't that kind? Blessing. There you go. Oscar put them on and felt the boy's warmth. He had something to give the boy, too. What do you think he gave the boy? His collar. He did. You're right. A few blocks later, he gave him his comic book. Yep. A few blocks later, a tall lady in a big coat walked out of a building. A policeman shouted, "Stand aside." Oscar stopped. "Oh, Thomas, he's just a child," the lady said to the policeman. "Let him pass." And then she winked at Oscar. The policeman moved out of Oscar's path. Yes, Mrs. Roosevelt. Do you know who that is? No, she was Mrs. Roosevelt. She was the president's wife.
The what one?
She was the president's wife. The sun was setting and Oscar began to run. He had to get to his Aunt Esther's before she lit the shamash. Running, he stumbled and fell. Oh no, but a hand reached down. Yeah. Who do you think that was? Somebody to help him? Yes. The man pulled him up and back on his feet. His father was right. People can be good. He turned the corner and ran down the street looking for her house. He ran past a woman humming a nigdol. Suddenly, he heard a name. Benjamin? It wasn't his name, it was his father's. And it washed over him. She had a dimple smile just like his. Oscar said, "That's Papa's." He said, "I'm Oscar," whispered Aunt Esther. Look at that. He made it. He walked all that way and encountered all those beautiful blessings. So when people are having hard times, you have to look for what? The blessings, because they're all around us. So now it's time for you all to go to your classes, right? So you're going to meet Mr. Jan outside in the lobby, and we're going to sing you out. What's the name of the song? Go Now in Peace. Thank you for teaching me something. That was a blessing. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Each month, we donate half our collection to a worthy organization in need. The recipient of MLUC's December offering outreach is Rock to the Future. This organization provides free music education and support to under-resourced youth in Philadelphia. Rock to the Future serves hundreds of students annually in school, after school, and during the summer. Beyond music, it provides academic support, career guidance, and essential resources in schools, community venues, and juvenile justice facilities to help students and their families overcome challenges and thrive. The organization aligns with UU Principle Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and Number 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. To make a cashless donation, whether watching remotely or from here in the sanctuary, please follow the instructions on the screen or on the back of the order of service. The offering will now be gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward? At this time in the service, it is our custom to share personal joys and sorrows, expecting to be heard, accepted, and supported. As a community, we acknowledge each joy or sorrow by lighting a candle and saying together, "We hold you in our hearts." Dave Van Acker tells us that his best friend, Tim, passed away Thursday evening. Dave said, "Tim and I and our families built a lifetime of memories together over our 40-plus years of friendship. For Dave, Tim, and their families, we hold you in our hearts." And let us light a candle for those of us with joys or sorrows too deep to say out loud at this time. We hold you in our hearts. Today we have a poem called "Light at the End of the Tunnel" by Judith Sargent Murray. We march through this tunnel, this dark, everlasting tunnel, but I wonder if the sun is rising. I wonder if the light is coming. This is for the best, that once we have marched through the tunnel to get where we need to be, maybe the sun will shine on our beautiful faces. Maybe this was the journey that we needed to reach our destination, that destination where everyone is beautiful, that destination where everyone is free, where we can say, "I love you," without anyone saying no, where my children and your children can be friends without people separating them, where you can walk outside without being shot, where people choose love over appearance. That is the light at the end of the tunnel. Please join me now for a moment of silent reflection.
Dis Apostolek means little boots, and this is a song about profound love in which the narrator professes their willingness to give anything for their love, including the little boots off of their feet.
Verkäuf von dieser Poschkelach und vorn auf die Droschkelach, abi mit dir einem zu sein. Oi, ich und dir und du und mir, abi akiam ke onatir, ke zelefe gelemai. Oi, vorn auf die was Golkelach und vollkommen fremde Schlollekach, abi mit dir einem zu sein. Oi, ich und dir und du und mir, abi akiam ke onatir, ke zelefe gelemai. Da 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 da. Da Abi mit dir einem zu sein. Oi, ich und dir und du und mir, Abi akiam ke onatir, ke telefegele mein. Oi, schleuf auf die, wach soll ich ach und waschen fremde Pollechlach, Abi mit dir einem zu sein. Oi, ich und dir und du und mir, Abi akiam ke onatir, ke telefegele mein. Da 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 da
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And thank you all for coming as we approach the fourth horseman of the holiday apocalypse, New Year's Eve. I'm glad to see so many of you here today. Seems that you mostly have recovered from Christmas. And now we move on to a new year. I begin today with a story from my past. I first met Rabbi Rachel as she was starting a new progressive reformed synagogue in the South Bay of the Los Angeles basin. The church that I was serving at that time was considering renting our sanctuary to them on Friday evenings so they could get started. Long before I had any awareness of what was at stake in the Middle East, I asked her what her stance on Israel was. I knew this was a very loaded question to ask a rabbi, but I was curious. Every rabbi I have known since and then and beyond has had a very strong stance supporting Israel, regardless of their occupation of Palestine. And even the most politically liberal rabbis do not bend on this issue. Rachel surprised me. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "It pains me to say this, but I do not agree with the state of Israel is doing to the native Palestinians. The state is using our history as a persecuted people to shield them from the apartheid they practice in the name of our Jewish right to self-defense." That was a very thoughtful answer, and I was truly taken aback. I've known Jewish people who take such a liberal stance, but I've never, ever met a religious professional, much less a rabbi, who took that stand, any stand other than we stand with Israel. We agreed to let her rent the space. We held several services together as the years progressed. They grew large enough, and eventually they moved into a place of their own. On this, the fourth day of the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, I want to lift up the complicated religious reality of Israel and Palestine and suggest how we, here, right now, actually could help light the way to a new future. Not just in the Middle East, but anywhere, including here. Many of you know the State of Israel came into being after World War II as part of something known as the Balfour Agreement, wherein a portion of the Palestinian territories would be given over to the Jewish people for refuge and self-determination. The establishment of the State of Israel and its many expansions over these last years have been led by a group known as the Zionists. Since the very beginning of its statehood, Israel has claimed a divine mandate to re-inhabit the lands of Israel, of Palestine, much according to their biblical history as they perceive it being a mandate from God. As in ancient times, Israel entails in this occupation a removal of the people that are already there. It's not like the land isn't being lived on. These are the native Palestinians. Mostly Arabs, but not always. Some Christians, occasionally some other religious groups, but in each of the subsequent wars that Israel has been a part of, it has expanded that territory by force. And if you were to look at a map, you'd see an ever-expanding width to the country. And since the 1970s, the so-called settlers have been taking land from Palestinians under the control and protection of the Israeli Defense Force, the army. The culture by which this is permitted has a great deal to do with the persecution and the collective guilt that the Western powers feel about the atrocities of the Holocaust. Indeed, having a refuge from their historic and incredible persecution, which they've been subjected to for millennia, is a noble and right cause, in my opinion. But the continued displacement and the persecution of Palestinians is morally not right. I agree with Ta-Nehisi Coates that this is now an apartheid state, a two-system state with different ways for the Israeli Jews and different ways for the Palestinian Muslims. The Jewish, as Coates put it, the Jewish people in the state of Israel sought to restore the honor lost to the Nazis by warring against Arabs in the breach. And whenever American politicians try to question this power, it's called anti-Semitism. Back in 2015, the Republican Congress invited Benjamin Netanyahu to come and speak in a joint session. This, of course, did not come from the president, which would have been the normal protocol. As he was referring to the ceiling above the door of the House chamber, the Prime Minister said, "Overlooking all of us in this august chamber is the image of Moses. Moses led our people from slavery to the gates of the promised land. And before the people of Israel entered the land of Israel, Moses gave us a message that has stilled our resolve for thousands of years. Be strong and resolute, be not in fear or dread of them. Be strong and resolute, be not in fear or dread of them." From the book of Deuteronomy. Congress roared to its feet in support. Of course, the them he was referring to are the Palestinian people. Judaism has long been steeped in a culture of militancy and might. From its biblical past come the stories of Abraham and Moses conquering the land that was there. The book of Joshua, mostly apocryphal, tells of the occupation of that promised land after the death of Moses. It's a recounting of subjugation. This, of course, all for the promised land. Now, the pogroms of the past and the terrible Holocaust of that last century give Jewish people ample reason to fight back. I do not deny this. The book of Maccabees, from which the Hanukkah story emerges, is an example of that right to exist. But morally, my question is, where does the right to exist go beyond that safety to the boundaries of occupation? I believe we can do better than this. And I believe, like Rabbi Rachel, that there is a difference between faith and political gain. One cannot excuse the other, nor can you pull them entirely apart. I know that some have thought that the politics that sometimes comes through this pulpit are a little bit disorienting. But friends, politics is about power, and power is about moral rectitude in its practice, when it is practiced for right. The difference for us is that separating politics and faith is not enough. And we need to look at another level, a level beyond the politics, a level below or above, depending on how we want to look at this, where the politics are not as important as the faith in the miracle of life and living itself. This, I think, is where we come in. Our understanding to be compassionate people, to show loving kindness to folks who are different from us, the same from us, is a way of actually bearing witness, as I spoke of several weeks ago, to the problems in the world we're facing now, starting with the problems in your own lives. I don't need to tell you that there are many among us who are dealing with great difficulty right now, and that for some of us, just to show up on Sunday is an act of a miracle. In fact, you being here at all as living human beings is a miracle, if you really think about it. A wonderful theologian of the last century, Forrest Church, once wrote that without even trying, you've already won the only race that really matters. Unconsciously, yet omnipresent, you ran the gauntlet of stars and genomes to assume your full, nothing less than miraculous place in the cosmos. Being alive to hurt and love, to fail and recover, to find hope, to prove your grit, to show compassion. This is life's true secret. This is the miracle. Life's abiding opportunity bequeathed against all odds to each and every one of us is much the same. It is to live and also to die, he wrote. For the multitudes of sisters and brothers who beat the odds with us, who labored with our ancestors' hands, and wept tears of grief and joy from our ancestors' eyes, connecting us as kin to God, to each other, blessed together, always together, with the privilege of running from gate to flag in life's glorious race. The great Rabbi Jonathan Sacks once said that faith is the ability to see the miraculous in the everyday. I believe in that. I believe that the everyday, as Yvette was saying in the story, there are blessings that are being given to us if we look for them, if we hold them close to our heart. And even in the midst of all the difficulties in the Middle East, there are daily blessings that are being offered between peace activists on either side of that equation. Of course, we won't hear about that. But the heart of Hanukkah is that we have the courage to act with compassion to all those we meet, and especially to act with compassion towards ourselves. Faith needs to mean something more than just a professed belief. Faith needs to mean that you, in your own way, you in your own heart, find a reason to go on to the next day. Because ultimately, all these things shall pass. But what we will really leave behind as loving people will be our ability to show kindness and compassion to those we meet. When faith alone is seen as a justification for any means, whether it is occupation or jihad, we lose the thread of our humanity. And that's where we come in again, as Hanukkah reminds us that a single flame, a single light of courage burns in our own hearts. It invites us to step out in faith, to do what we can with what we have, and know that somehow that will be enough because, friends, you are here, and that, right now, in this moment, is enough. Several weeks ago, we had a wonder-filled solstice celebration. Who was here for that? Does anybody remember that? Yeah, quite a few folks. We started with drumming. Very well done, David. Drum, drum, drum. I could drumming for half an hour. That's exhausting. But you were out there drumming away. Everybody was getting the beat. We were going at different tempos. And then we had the service itself, which was held in the round, with a flame, with music, and with dance. Donna Feldman leading us in dance with the MLUC dancers. And the dance that they did was sort of a spiral, going in and going out and going around, and others could feel called to be a part of that dance if they wanted to. Or they could just take a break and sit still. Some of us found a way in, and while the movement of the dance had choreography, it was actually quite flexible. That light that I saw in that dance was really how we move as Unitarian Universalists, because we are more than just sitting still. Someone asked a Unitarian Universalist theologian in Japan, actually, of all places, at a conference, he said, "Where do you stand on the divinity of Jesus?" And the UU theologian looked at this man and said, well, we really don't stand on anything. We dance. That's what I'm talking about, is the dancing. Because the dance and the offering of light and the offering of loving compassion, this is really what is going to change our world. And we're part of that miracle right now. As my colleague Christian Schmidt puts it, in many ways the same is true for the Hanukkah story. While everyone seems to agree that Hanukkah is about a miracle, it's a story about a miracle, there are different interpretations of just what that miracle was. As UUs, we need to hold up the miracle of light and the ability to dance however we dance. Some of us dance sitting still. Some of us dance with our mind. Some with our hands, some with our hearts. We draw light from the future into the future with possibilities that we, though aware of our faults, are still dancing and bringing light. Unitarian Universalism draws wisdom from many sources, including other faith traditions. And I've often said this to people who don't really understand what we're about. I'm often asked the questions, well, what do Unitarians believe about X? And I said, it's really a category mistake, because we're really not about believing one thing. We're about processing that belief into a meaning in your own personal life that draws you forth and carries you through the day. We're more process than product. It invites, though, us and congregations here and across the country to welcome people with different backgrounds, with different cultures and different understandings. It's quite rich. And I know that I've hit home on a sermon when someone says to me, I loved what you said. And then the next person says, I didn't like so much what you said. Yeah, it didn't hit home for me. And when I get that kind of diversity, I know we're reaching different people in different ways. It's like what we do with the music. David and I talk about this all the time. Some people will say, oh, I didn't like that. I prefer classical music. And then I say, great, come next week. Maybe classical music, right? Maybe klezmer, maybe drumming. I don't know what we're going to do. The point is that we take the diversity, and with that we find a way to light the inner light within us. And I believe that our congregation is so much richer that the holy shrine that we worship at is the community we make from this diversity and practicing compassion and loving kindness. Now, the diversity brings blessings and riches. It brings challenges. Opinions emerge in congregations about different backgrounds and cultures and philosophies and deeply held convictions. And of course, often it can trigger pain and loss and trauma. But the important thing here, friends, the important thing here is to let the miracle be in your heart. And you see somebody who's having a tough time, I hope you're reaching out to them. Ask them if they'd like to sit down and just be with you in a quiet place. We are a big tent faith. We open the tent, we make it bigger. Our starting place is not to engage in one particular perspective. Our starting place is to take the different perspectives and bring them together in the whole of a community. The community is really our sacred space. Like a dance, the light that guides us to an unknown future will be one in which we have practiced compassion and loving kindness. Now, I realize that this does not solve the world's problems. I'm not here to solve the world's problems, and honestly, neither are you. But we are here to be together, and knowing that being together and practicing love, we are actually performing that miracle that lights the way to our future. I realize, of course, that this will not work for everyone. As Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg wrote, it's both in Israel and Hamas's interest to take extreme positions as a state or an organization. The path to Palestinian freedom and to peace and safety for everyone requires seeing everyone's humanity and rooting for everyone's liberation. everyone's liberation, including yours. That's the light. I close with a story. A Buddhist monk, active in bringing peace in the West Bank, approached an Israeli soldier. This monk had been once a soldier in Vietnam. When he was stopped by the soldier and asked for his paper, the monk looked at the soldier and asked him, "How are you sleeping?" Since the Vietnam War, the monk explained, he himself had gone many sleepless nights. He had insomnia, he had nightmares, he heard people screaming in his sleep. He was used to not sleeping. The soldier understood that the monk had been in war, had been a soldier himself, and slowly shook his head and said he wasn't sleeping so well, and they started talking. The soldier explained what he was doing as a soldier, and the monk explained what he was doing as a monk, as a peace activist. And as they were talking, the monk could tell the soldier was admiring the beads that the monk kept in his hands. Prayer beads, sacred reminders to practice loving kindness. The monk said, "I'll trade you the beads for that gun," pointing to the 9mm revolver in the holster at his waist. The soldier said, "No, I'm not allowed to let go of the gun. If I don't have my gun, I'd be shot." So the monk asked him if he could trade his beads for the bullet in the chamber of the gun. And the soldier agreed and removed the bullet in his chamber and gave it to the monk, and the monk gave him the beads. The monk said before leaving, "May these beads bring you peace." And with that, they parted. One less bullet, one more act of kindness. Our religious task as Unitarian Universalists in this new year is not to take sides, but to light a way with reason and compassion, to practice loving kindness towards others and mostly towards ourselves. When we find ourselves in conversations about Israel and Palestine, to not be defensive about our heritage, but rather to be reasonable. Suffering is not the means to any end. If policies in one country are hurting a people, then the policies need to change. True, we can do better, we must do better, but the only way we, as a mass of people, as a religious movement, are actually going to make that happen is by practicing that loving kindness that lights the way to our future. The poet Louise Hay once wrote, "Nothing in the past is as powerful as what we choose to do in a present moment. The way to our future is lit by our choices. May your new year be blessed with love and compassion." Amen. Oh, shucks. Thank you. Our closing hymn is a bit of a tradition. We'll sing O Lang Syne. And I guess the words will be up on the screen, right? David will lead us. Please rise in body or spirit. And by benediction from the great poet John O'Donohue of blessed memory. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter into the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you respond to the call of your gift and follow the courage that is in your path. May the warmth of your heart keep presence aflame and anxiety no longer linger around you. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek attention and experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. So now the service truly begins, friends. Please remain seated for the postlude.
Light bride, she is all mine, and lightly she will kiss me. Call